Let's get acquainted. Snow the Salt Queen, or better known as Yandere Freak, a former TikTok star with over 1.5 million followers who has done an insanely stupid thing that ruined more than one person's life, including herself. Sit back. It's going to be interesting. Friends, this is my first video, and I will be very happy to get feedback from you. All shortcomings and wishes, write in the comments. I will not mind to see among you new subscribers, as well as we can discuss new topics of interest to you for new videos. Our story begins in the wonderful city of Houston in the state of Texas. It's a place of great opportunity, but today we're going to focus on the story of a young woman who lived in the suburbs of Houston. Helen was born into a family of 2 scientists who worked at a nearby medical school. From an early age, Helen traveled the world with her and had a great love for Japan. Because Helen's parents were well off and loved to travel, she grew up with a wide range of hobbies. She loved theater, music, swimming, and even robotics. Her curiosity knew no bounds. She always wanted to learn more about the world around her, but in high school, she faced bullying from her classmates. As a teenager, Hallie began to identify as a non-binary person, which made her a target for bullying. She couldn't seem to shake off the pain and sadness that surrounded her, until a friend invited her to a cosplay festival. Helen found the concept fascinating. She soon discovered a whole world of creativity and endless possibilities to express herself in the world of cosplay. For Helen, discovering this world was a turning point in her life. She finally found people who accepted her for who she was and was finally able to let go of the pain and sadness that she had experienced in high school. Helen began devoting all her time to cosplay and created her own TikTok account to share her accomplishments. As a result, her channel grew very quickly. She made a lot of new friends in the cosplay community. 2 years later, in 10th grade, Helen met a girl named Mary Ann. Mary was also a cosplayer who was known under various names, including Snow the Salt Queen, Yandere Freak, or just Snow. The two quickly became close friends, bonding over their shared love of cosplay. As you know, through cosplay, Helen found a way to express herself and was able to start socialize with other people. It was a world where she could be whoever she wanted to be without the judgment, the bullying she faced at school. Although the real world was still hard for her, Helen knew that she had friends who were always there for her. And now it's time to introduce you to Mary. She was born, like Helen, in Houston in September of the year 98. Mary was a hugely successful cosplayer who had a huge social media following, most often dressing up as characters from popular games. Mary described herself as the character Junko from the franchise Danganronpa. There, high school students were locked in a school and forced to kill each other to get out. And despite her immense popularity, Mary's behavior was somewhat strange behavior. She was notorious for her eccentric antics. For example, she dressed up as underage characters, taking nude photos for fans who were willing to pay for it. Also, one of the most controversial moments occurred in 2019, when Mary and her friend went to a cemetery, and they were recorded dancing on graves in cosplay outfits. They also sat on top of tombstones in boots. Of course, publishing this video on social media, viewers harshly condemned these actions. Even worse, hundreds of co-workers have expressed their disgust at the actions of Mary. Then, she went online to claim that they had permission from the cemetery authorities to pose on these graves. However, the cemetery's caretaker, in an email, denied the claim and threatened to arrest Mary if they did it again. Meanwhile, Mary continued to mock everyone who was upset by her action and continued to provoke her audience, both on Instagram and on TikTok. And despite these, to put it mildly, controversial situations, Helen became friends with her and they began to see each other often. It was around this time that Helen's mother began to notice her daughter's strange behavior. As it turned out, not surprisingly, Mary, her friends, drank alcohol and smoked pot very often. Helen eventually became addicted to it. Their acquaintances, who were in no way connected to the party, also noted that Mary and her group were drunk most of the time, or stoned. And this, of course, created even more tension between Helen and her mother. Let's travel back to the year 2021. After years of hard work at school, Helen finally enrolled in a college in another city. By the fall of that year, Her mother helped her move. It was time to start a new adult life with new friends and new problems. The semester began, and Helen started to go online less and less. It seemed like she'd moved on from her past life and started a new one. Unfortunately, as November approached, there was a resurgence cases of an all-too-familiar virus, and that meant only that the college would have to close for a while. So Helen moved back. Her parents were sick too, so she decided to live with Mary while her parents were in quarantine. Plus, she could continue her classes online. Helen had always struggled with her studies, her social life in general. Even so, she had hoped that she could go back to college in the new year. But her living conditions were far from ideal. She lived in a rented her friend's house, which was far from the city and lacked everything the necessities of college life. Mary's housemates spent most of the night drinking or durian, and of course, this prevented Helen from concentrating on her studies. On January 17, 2021, everything changed. Helen was with Mary and 5 other friends in this ill-fated rented house. They had been drinking since the evening and continued to drink all night watching movies. At one point, Mary and her friend went to the garage, and there they noticed a Glock pistol, apparently left behind by her ex-boyfriend. For a moment, she pulled the gun out of its case, examined it, and took it with her. The company then continued watching the movie. Around 1 a.m., Mary remembered she had a gun. She took it out and started fiddling with it. The others knew about the gun, because it wasn't the first time Mary had shown it at a party like this. The mutual friends asked Mary to shoot it. Then, intoxicated, she held the gun to her head, made some sort of, and then just put it down. Then Helen, who loves cosplay and reincarnations, allegedly asked to also hold the gun to her head, wanting to match the moment. Mary turned around and put the gun to Helen's head, and pulled the trigger thinking the gun wasn't loaded. However, as you can imagine, it was loaded. Helen instantly collapsed to the floor. The police and ambulance were called immediately. Mary will later say that she thought the gun was unloaded, that she did not at all intended to shoot Helen at all. Mary thought it was perfectly safe, because her ex-boyfriend said he'd removed the bullets from the clip. There really weren't any bullets in the clip, but that's a common mistake. A lot of people think that if a gun's clip is empty, then all the bullets have been removed. But in fact, even after it's discharged, there's a good chance that there's still a round in the chamber ready to fire. And that's what happened in this case. EMTs arriving on the scene found Helen alive, but on the verge of death. She had almost no brain activity and was hooked up to a life support machine. Sadly, she passed away 2 days later on January 19, 2021. The aftermath of Helen's death was shrouded in mystery for months. There were very few details about what happened or who was responsible. Many of her college friends thought she had committed suicide. Meanwhile, there was no indication on Mary's social media accounts that anything catastrophic had happened in her life. She continued to post vids as if nothing had happened. Nevertheless, Mary was eventually charged with manslaughter but was released on $20,000 bail. Bail, by the way, was frowned upon by anyone who knew any details about the case. 4 days after the incident, Mary posted a video on TikTok announcing that she was taking a break. But to the surprise of many, she returned to the platform with a new cosplay video 3 weeks later. What's even more disturbing is that some of these new videos were centered around death. Despite this whole situation, it seemed like she was making a mockery of the situation by posting videos with a message like, "And goodness, you're bleeding? What a wonderful feeling." In August, prosecutors were asked to revoke Mary's bail for violating a condition of release. The reason was, she was absent from pretrial services. Her GPS tracker's battery died. In October, it became clear that Mary was responsible for Helen's death, and she immediately deleted her social media accounts in an attempt to distance herself from the backlash. Unfortunately, Helen's family and friends had to clean up the mess, and the culprit disappeared from the web. The case has become the talk of the town. Mary was charged with second-degree manslaughter, and it's unknown if she will plead guilty. The consequences of her actions could result in 20 years behind bars or as little as 2 years, and a fine of up to $10,000. And regardless of one's personal opinion on being allowed to carry a gun, I think everyone can agree that guns and alcohol don't mix. A responsible gun owner will never allow himself to be in a situation where he can lose control and endanger others. Helen was only 18 years old at the time of her death. She had a bright future ahead of her, with a successful career after college. Unfortunately, she ended up in the wrong company, with the wrong people, and Mary's recklessness ultimately led to unfortunate consequences. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourself.